Hello YouTube preppers, this is the Comms Prepper, and in this video I'm going to talk about selecting a handheld radio or radios to support emergency communications from the perspective of a prepper. I've had an amateur radio license for 29 years now, and I'm also a prepper. And recently I posted a video that was critical of the practice here in the prepping community of buying cheap imported ham radios and modifying those radios to operate on radio services outside of the amateur radio band, specifically on MERS, FRS, and GMRS. And much to my surprise, this video set off a firestorm in the comments section. And between all the static, the hate, and the discontent, I did get some questions that were very legitimate that I failed to address in that video. And those were, if I don't recommend that practice or those types of radios, then what radio would I recommend for somebody starting out in amateur radio or prepping? And the short answer to those subs was I couldn't recommend a radio because I didn't know their individual operating requirements. What were they looking to achieve? So that's what I want to talk about in this video. Thinking about what your operational requirements are and then finding a matching radio service and equipment that can meet those requirements. Let's say you have a large family or a small family, a couple of kids and a spouse, and you're looking for radio communications around a house or a retreat location. And nobody has an amateur radio license, and nobody has an interest in getting an amateur radio license. In that situation, I would recommend looking at the general mobile radio service. You pay a single fee, no exam required, and that license covers everybody in your immediate family. And I have some examples up here. I have these Midland GXT radios. They put out a little over 3 watts. You can get a pair of these with surveillance kits, that's the earbuds and the microphone, and a desktop charger for under 60 bucks on Amazon right now. If you're looking for something that's a little more permanent or fixed in the general mobile radio service, then Midland recently released the Midland Micro Mobile. This is a full 5-watt radio specific to the GMRS radio service with an external antenna connection here. So with a quality piece of cable and a quality antenna, you can put together a very nice and robust emergency communications plan with these radios right here without having to take an amateur radio license. These radios here are specifically designed for the general mobile radio service, so they're going to perform well for you. Or let's say you have a group that wants to get amateur radio licenses. The caveat there is everybody you want to communicate with has to have an amateur radio license. There's not a single license that covers everybody. So if you're going to go down the path of amateur radio, then everybody has to commit to getting a license. So let's say that happens and everybody gets their entry-level license, a technician class license. Then I would recommend as entry-level radios any one of these 2 radios. This radio on my left is one of my most favorite radios. This is the Yaesu FT60R. And I have the price pulled up here. They run for $155 right now. What I really like about this radio is the fact that it has an external squelch setting here, an old knob that you can adjust. I'm not a big fan of having to drill down in the menus to set the squelch level, especially if you have a lot of other radios around that are not well made. There's a lot of RF energy around and the squelch can start tripping on you. It's nice to be able just to crank that squelch up a little bit more to keep that radio quiet. Another option for an entry-level radio is this ICOM ICV80 Sport. I actually got this for one of the Comms Prepper helpers when she passed her amateur radio license. I really like this radio because it has an old school BNC connector. I've never been a big fan of the SMA connectors that the industry is using now, but you can't get everything that you want. But for somebody cutting their teeth on amateur radio and looking for something that's a little bit more robust, this ICOM is a great option. You got a very sturdy antenna. This has a lot of mil-spec features when it comes to shock, dust, vibration, and exposure to water. This is a really nice radio. And this radio runs for $150 right now. Now, continuing down the amateur radio path, for those folks who want to leverage the more advanced features of amateur radio, then I would recommend looking at ICOM's D-Star product line. The example I have here is the ICOM ID51 Alpha Plus handheld. It's a VHF UHF handheld. It runs for around $340. But in addition to legacy analog capability compatible with these radios here, this is also a digital radio. So you can have digital voice communications between 2 radios or leverage the D-Star system, which can give you regional or international communications. Once you get into a D-Star repeater, you can navigate to any other D-Star repeater on the planet. In addition, I've done several videos here on the channel with this radio. You can transmit photographs between these radios with an external Android device. You can do text messaging between radios. And this has a really nice feature called offline mapping with that external tablet, any Android tablet, where you can preload maps from a specific area, let's say a house, a neighborhood, or a homestead. And this radio has built-in GPS receiver here on the top, so 2 or 3 or more handhelds operating in the same area can actually update the location of the other radios real time on an offline map that you've preloaded. So let's say in a disaster the internet goes down, you don't have Google Maps, but you've got a couple guys out with radios. You can see where all those people are each time they transmit. Their GPS coordinates are transmitted in that digital signal, and you can track them on a map. This is a great feature for emergency communications, a hurricane, tornado, a flood, being able to keep track of everybody in your group. There's also a lot of people in the prepping community who have authority and have an interest in having communications with public safety, rescue squads, fire departments, police departments. For those type of communications, you probably want a business band radio, and you can get those pretty easy on the used market. Here I have an example of Kenwood radio. This is a VHF radio. Don't be fooled by the price though. These are quality radios. LMR surplus radios are typically very well made. The hidden cost that you might not see when you see that low price on eBay is the battery may be bad, it may not come with the charging cradle, the antenna may be bad or in the wrong band, and typically you can figure that out by screwing the antenna off. Most manufacturers put the frequency in the bottom side of the antenna. So you might be able to get a really good deal on a used LMR radio, a commercial radio, but just keep in mind that you may have to buy some accessories for it. Another challenge you could face with these types of radios is they're programmable, so you just have a set of frequencies you adjust on the top to access. If you pick these up used, typically you can go to a local two-way radio shop and they might charge you $20-30 to program it. Make sure you have a list of all the frequencies you want if you're going to go down this path and buy used LMR equipment, so you don't have to pay that fee more than once. And also be mindful you might have to replace the antenna, the battery, and the charging cradle. So in summary, my intention with this video is to help explain to those subs who sent those questions that I can't simply just recommend a radio. I would need to know your operational requirements for your radio communications, and only you can answer that question. But once you sit down and review what your requirements are, it's a whole lot easier to match up a specific radio service and product line to meet that operational requirement. If you have a group that doesn't want to commit to getting an amateur radio license, then FRS and GMRS is a viable option. There's some great new products coming online, especially from Midland with high power mobiles. They have a 15 watt mobile now and a 40 watt mobile coming out. If you have a group that is committing to getting amateur radio licenses, there's some great entry level options, some really quality equipment out there that has mil-spec features for dust, shock, vibration, and water. And when the time comes, if you're interested in that and you want to leverage the more advanced capabilities of amateur radio, there's advanced radios as well that can support additional operational requirements, and there's always the surplus market of land mobile radio products. So I hope that helps clarify that question why I couldn't directly answer when you posted that comment. And as always, thank you for watching my videos and subscribing to my channel. This has been the Comms Prepper with a kind of lengthy video explaining what goes on in the background when trying to select a radio or radios to support emergency communications. Thanks for watching, guys.